Okay, the next solo challenge is going to be Tifa, because I thought she's one that I had been keeping in the party for the brutal encounters. And again, much like the others, I got her set up as best I could. And let's get straight into it and see how my attempt went to get through Tifa's legendary solo challenge. Now, this one for me was by far the most annoying of the bunch. I had a really difficult time with this one. One of the main reasons why was this first round here. Watch what happens here. Obviously, I didn't really know what to really do, what the best method was here, but those lacerates come in immediately, they home in on you, and they do 2,200 damage each. So if you get hit by all three of them, you get KO'd within 5 seconds of the fight starting, which I don't think was the case for basically any other encounter. I was like, what the hell is happening here? Again, I didn't want to use like First Strike plus Magnify plus Lightning, and then just take these guys out in a single hit, because I wanted those materia slots for other things. And so I thought, surely there's got to be a better method here to try and take them out. And it seems like if you can avoid their really annoying attacks, you can kind of overpower them with Star Shower, and you can pressure them very quickly. But every single move that these guys do does over 2,000 damage to me, and they're spamming those moves all the time. And so either you have a setup where you come in so fast that they don't get a chance to basically use any of their moves, or you have to learn to kind of dodge their moves a little bit at the start like this, and then basically build up ATB without getting hit. But you can see constantly it's like Marco shot or it's lacerate. So you have to stay on the move, otherwise they're going to mow you down very quickly. But Star Shower was working pretty well, but you stay static for like a second or two, so it's a little bit dangerous. And again, it's an ATB problem, so now I have to get that ATB back while not getting hit by anything. So it was pretty messy. I did not like this first round, it's really annoying. But if you time it right, you can kind of overpower them. So I definitely didn't figure out like a perfect way to deal with these guys. But you're going to see later on there's a round that really screwed me over, and so I end up getting a lot of practice against these guys as a result. But I think this was the first time I beat them. Yeah, the only benefit here is that with stuff like Star Shower, even that wasn't close enough to do damage. Well, it did, but the second one didn't get damaged at all, which wasn't a good idea. But yeah, Star Shower pressures them very quickly, so I think that's one thing that definitely worked in my favor. Let's see the limit in action. 7,530. It was a critical hit though, to be fair. But still, that's a lot of damage. So there you go, second time round I managed to get through, but there were plenty of rounds where when I repeated this, they literally took me out in 5 seconds and I just got it completely wrong. But for this one I got through. Now, Tifa's challenge ended up actually, other than that first round being really annoying, I think it was probably my favorite of the bunch. The reason I say that is because this was the one that I felt most clearly was designed with a specific playstyle in mind. I think that was the case with all of them, but I felt that the most with Tifa's one. What I mean is, Tifa to me feels the least kind of classic Final Fantasy gameplay of the bunch, because obviously she's very geared around, you know, quickly running around, dodging attacks, building ATB fast, and when you get a stagger, you can use her abilities to push the stagger gauge. You're inputting commands very quickly. I think high-level Tifa players, they obviously utilize shortcuts a lot, and it's a very just like high-pace, high-octane, high-action style of gameplay. And in general, that's the one that I'm the furthest away from, because I'm obviously more of a classical Final Fantasy player. Now, for this one, I think if you try to play it like classical Final Fantasy style, you're going to have a hard time. If you play it action style, but you play it badly, you're going to have a bad time. And this kind of set of challenges, I think, really trains you in trying to stop you from playing that way. And so for that, I have to give the game credit. Like, this felt like, once I got to the end of this, I became a better player of Tifa as a result. Far from becoming great, but I definitely improved, and I learned like a few different ways to approach it as a result. So what you're seeing here is, I think it begins truly from a Deathclaw fight, I think round 1 still, I just don't like it, it's crap. But Deathclaw is one where obviously the punishes are big. So if it hits you with a claw, it's 1,700 damage. That means like 3 times with the claw and you are KO'd. Also, of course, the main window to do anything against this guy is Reaper Claws. Now this attack is cheap, by the way. It just claws for like 12 seconds and chases you around the whole arena. That's lame. But with this one, the whole idea is to basically avoid the attacks or perfect parry them, if you're good like that, is to do that. And then when it does the Reaper Claw, obviously it's supposed to miss because the punishment is huge. You drop to 1 HP if it lands a hit. So it's this kind of running and dodging or running and parrying, and then it gives you a very clear window to say, hey, like now you can come in and do your damage. And so this is one where you have to be patient. If you're too much of a like, you know, you don't really know how to play as Tifa, and you're just mashing square and just like running in and trying your best to just completely overpower the enemy, if you don't know how to block properly while you're doing that, which I think a lot of us still struggle with, like our, you know, us average players, you are going to have a horrible time, because even this guy is going to cause you a lot of problems, and the next round is going to be even worse. And so this one, I think, is a baby version of what's to come in the next round, where it's saying to you, don't rush it, wait for your opportunities, and then attack, and make the most of the opportunities you have. And when it's not your turn to attack, you need to be careful and do your best to dodge things or to parry things effectively. So this one, considering it's my first try solo against it, I think I'm doing okay. I'm getting hit a lot, more than I'd like, but eventually as I got more practice in, I end up getting hit way less. I'd say for me, it's still more intuitive to just run. I think it's a higher level skill to rely more on parries than literally running and pressing circle and just keeping your distance. But I think for this guy and for my skill level, I was preferring to just play it this way. So once again, I do have the MP absorption type materia on my fire spell, so I'm able to maintain my MP, which is very useful. Somersault does decent damage. I mean, that was like 7,000 odd damage. It's pretty nice. But it's taken me a while, again, because I'm not very used to playing as Tifa solo or very good at it. I'm not really maximizing my damage as I should. I don't really know how to do that. But Rancid Breath worked very well here. The slow, as usual, doesn't last very long, but at least we landed a poison as well. So in subsequent attempts, basically what happened against this guy was that I started to get more and more aggressive. I developed a way to basically, whenever it pressures itself after Reaper Claws, I'd come in. Then at this point, I would cast Fire instead of continuing to punch. That Fire would basically knock it up in the air. And when it came back down, then I'd continue to punch, build up ATB, and try to create a bit of a loop where basically I spent more time attacking than actually running away. But this one, obviously, I was playing it a lot more defensive, wasting more time. But eventually, as you're going to see, I still managed to make it through. That's one of the most dangerous combos when it does that kind of very quick leap and then Reaper Claws back to back. Like, that can put you in trouble. But in general, we were still there. So I wanted to finish off with a Star Shower because I just love this move. And there you go. So those rounds you're not going to see again. But one round you are going to see a few times is this one. This was the single... Was it the single worst round? Probably. Either the worst or the second worst. Like, I think it's a bit worse than Adamantoise because it relies a lot more on like fast twitch stuff that players like me are just not as good at or not as used to when playing Final Fantasy. So Kid G is faster than you, for starters. As you can see, he will catch you up. And so doing what you did against Reaper Claw is not going to work. He's quicker than you. Goblin Beatdown is his version of Reaper Claws. So obviously we fought this guy before, but usually you have, obviously you're not fighting him solo, so even if he's picking on, like if he hits a character, you can switch to somebody else and generally try to kind of take him down and do damage that way. But he is tough. Now the Sledgehammer attack did over half of Tifa's health. So if she gets hit by a Goblin Punch or a Sledgehammer, she's already basically in critical health. So that's a problem. the way I eventually realized you have to do this fight, this was the single, in terms of action fights, for me this was the best fight of the game. Pure action fight wise is probably the best. Here I'm completely on the back foot. This is my first attempt. I'm not really seeing what I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, he's healing himself for like 10,200 HP. How am I supposed to overcome this? Like, this just feels impossible. What kind of build do you need here to take this guy down? If the Goblin Punch hits, he immediately followed that with an uppercut and did like 5,000 and something damage. I got completely blasted and I didn't even do a single spot of damage there. So I was like, where do we go from here? So this is where I ended this session. I'd been playing for about 5.5 hours, and that one seemed difficult, so I was like, I'm not sure this is a good idea.
I encourage you to try.
So what I will do now is save you the time and show you, I think this is probably about 5 or 6 attempts. This is what ended up happening. So Kid G, as I say, this is a harder version of the fight against Reaper Claw. That's the way that I understood it. What that means is you have to play very carefully. You cannot rush this guy, again, unless you're very good and you know exactly what you're doing and you play perfectly. For us mere mortals, the idea is not to rush him. If you don't rush him, then you can bait out the attacks that are going to put him under pressure, much like the whole Reaper Tail move, the Reaper Claws move. And once you get the opportunity, you need to make sure you make it count. So one, I'm using Bio and Venom to get some extra damage in. And Goblin Beatdown, you dodge it, and then you have to immediately go in and make use of this pressure. So now I'm using like fire plus my punches, and once I build up a little bit of stagger, get away again. So he's coming in, I tank these hits, and then basically after he punches you a little bit, he does like the kind of smaller punches, then he'll go for either a Goblin Beatdown, or he will go for a Sledgehammer. And obviously the idea is you have to dodge them. Like, if you're not good enough at dodging those moves, or you time it wrong, you're going to get yourself in big trouble. So you saw there briefly, I got too aggressive, and he did the whole I don't think so, he counters you, and then he can absolutely mow you down. So it's really a patience test, and a test of being able to dodge / parry. So Sledgehammer, you can parry. It doesn't have like the exclamation mark, but I generally, again, I prefer to roll away if I can do that. So he comes in again, I block a few hits, and then eventually he is going to go for a beatdown or a Sledgehammer, take the opportunity, try to stagger him as much as you can, but don't get too aggressive. Stop fighting now. See, if you take too long, he will catch you. And he just does so much damage that like you really don't want to get caught by this guy. If you block these, it's not so bad with steadfast block and stuff, it's not too bad. But in general, he is absolutely brutal. But I do have a Draconic Ring as well, if you're wondering how did my limit go up so fast. I have a Draconic Ring, because I knew I'd be blocking a lot in this fight, and so I've been trying to make use of that. This was bad timing, I just missed it. I was just too slow, that would have done way more damage, but this is the general loop, and that's why I think this fight is so good. There I got very lucky. Again, I got too aggressive, and he almost did the guard crush, and usually that's a game over if that happens. But so far at least, this is one fight where I think you can tell, compared to my first attempt, I really learned something, and I started to play a different way to what I normally would. And so that's why I have to give this fight a lot of credit. At first it felt like, I can't win this fight, there's just no way. But eventually I started to get a lot more consistent with this particular loop. So patience, dodging, punishing, not getting overly greedy, and then when you get the opportunity, give him a good old beatdown. So almost was too slow there. But obviously having the MP absorption on the fire really helps too, so I can keep punishing him with these firers that that do a lot of pressure / stagger damage or whatever. And so it's working pretty nice. I'm still not very good at once I get the stagger. I'm just not able to maximize my damage with it. It's really not very good, but it's enough to get me through. But yeah, steadfast block, regen, and tanking those hits is really, I think for me at least, it was a better choice. It kind of baits him out into the big move a bit more quickly. I think one of the ways you get caught out with this one is if he does it too quickly. So like he comes in for a goblin beatdown, like before he even fires off any of his like smaller punches. If he does that, then you're probably going to be too close, and if you don't time a parry, then you're going to get caught. But like there is some margin for error, but it's not very big. It's fine. There you go. Thankfully, he used Respite there. He used a Don't Think So, but again, he didn't crush my count afterwards, so I can't complain. So here I'm like, I've got ATB, what's the best way to use it? Went for regen again. This just stops me from having to waste ATB to heal later, because these hits, largely I can heal back using regen. But I really wanted to make sure I took him out on the next stagger, because his poisons run out as well. But yeah, this is the loop. Took definitely a few attempts here. But this also stops him from using the Whammo move, which is basically a one-hit KO. So yeah, then he did 2 in a row, then he did 3 in a row. When he's low on HP, he's an arsehole. And so here, just to slow things down again, I needed to retake control. So that's why I kept that limit. And now I really wanted to make sure I finished him off. And I did. So definitely a tough fight. And one I really had to learn. One of the few fights I think in this game I truly had to learn. And I played it like I wasn't playing a Final Fantasy game. And that definitely helped me to get through. So Kid G was a bastard, but I was pretty relieved. Good thing also about Kid G is that he's round 3. I think if he was round 5 and I died to him like 5 or 6 times, that would have been truly infuriating. So now this guy, because this was the first time I'd gotten past Kid G, I was already in the like, I do not want to die. I don't care if this battle takes a long time. I want to just make sure that I stay alive by any means necessary here. So this one, I think is much easier than the likes of Kid G. But I think if you want to truly kind of go more toe-to-toe and play more quickly and aggressively, then obviously it gets harder. But this is one fight where you're a bit more able to just kind of take it easy and just kind of do what's necessary to get the job done, even if it takes a long time. So this one, I don't think I'll show the full fight because I played this very defensively. I really wanted to make sure that that I didn't lose at this point. So you're seeing Bio is a lesser resistance, but that means we can still potentially use it. And again, I wanted to make sure I conserved my MP, so I tried to not use too much. But because this guy is slow, you don't have the Kid G problem. Like as long as you just stay on the move, as you're seeing here, he can't really get to you. So most of the time, you're going to get damaged here when you're actually on the attack and it will counter-attack, or you'll be too close to him and you won't be able to get away. In general, it's just a much easier fight, but it will take you a long time if you're playing kind of defensively here, and you don't have a good setup to do lots of big damage to it. So I'll keep showing you guys until I actually start to do some damage. Here I'm still kind of feeling out and seeing what it can do, what I can take risks on, what I can't. And I was spotting that he had the recharge move, so there's the first few hits. Yeah, it has the recharge move, and I thought to myself that's probably a good opportunity to get some damage in. So until then, kind of take it easy. Try to get Venom on there. I did get booby trapped there, or whatever that was. But as long as you're not getting like multiple hits on you, it's not too bad. So he does Detonation Strike, and then usually not too soon after that a recharge comes. So I'm just watching and waiting here. Detonation Strike. There's the recharge, so now obviously trying to get in again. But you can see that there's absolutely no stagger gauge here. So I thought to myself, probably the only chance I still have is just to keep damaging it when it does recharge, and then try to see if I can get the pressure that way. So I threw in a Gale Impulse here. I thought maybe it helps a little, but I don't think it even worked. But yeah, basically this one was a grind down, so I'm going to skip ahead to later in the fight. Okay, Detonation Strike. And here, I guess I'd done enough damage at this point for it to be pressured. And once it was, I decided to, even though it's not weak to fire, I know that it does good pressure damage, so I decided to just still use it anyway. You can see my MP is still doing okay as long as I end the fight soon. I've got a decent amount of MP. But we're still doing alright. And here I'm like, is there any way I can really get the job done? The answer is probably no, but let's do a somersault. That was nice damage. And it almost won the fight for me already. That was annoying. He completely jumped, like dived away from me. But because we do relatively little damage with the punches, it's like even though his health bar's gone, he wasn't like one hit away. There you go. And so with that, we beat this guy first time. Definitely wasn't pretty. It took a while, but we got it done. And it's on to Tifa's final round. And that is the Jabberwock. Jabberwocky? Jabberwock? Yeah, it's Jabberwock. Okay. So this guy is weak to fire, which is excellent for us because that's the one that we're kind of set up to exploit. And is also not immune to bio. So this was a case of obviously trying to get the Venom on there ASAP and then play it relatively defensively until you have an opportunity to use a firer. So that's the general idea. Its attacks do hurt, but they're generally like slow enough that it's not too bad. And when you block them, they're not terrible damage. But that seismic wave is the dangerous move there. That one can cause a lot of problems. Like if you don't get out of its range, it can do a ton of damage. So you have to be careful. This one's just a struggle to build ATB a bit, because if you're obviously far away, you're going to struggle. So obviously one of the best ways to build ATB is to, play a little more aggressively, and you're going to be within range of its moves as a result. But then you obviously do a nice little parry, and you get yourself some ATB as well. But you also don't want to get hit by too many of those to avoid petrification. And that's the first time I couldn't get out, and so I died. That was probably one of the most frustrating deaths of the entire Legendary run so far of the solos. I did not see that one coming. I literally fought against Jabberwock maybe 6 times or 8 times or something in the Musclehead Coliseum stuff that I did. But because I was so over-leveled and so OP, I just completely blasted through it every time. I never really noticed anything that it did because I just didn't care. I was just wailing on it. And I managed to get through. But once I saw that, I was like, oh, for God's sake, that's really annoying. But I changed it to something that protected me against Petrify, because I thought that's not happening again. The Draconic Ring was nice against Kid G especially. It brought me like an extra limit break. But I thought to myself, ultimately I've learned that fight enough that I can probably get by without it. Let me just protect against petrification. And as long as that move doesn't petrify me, then it should be almost certain I can win. So let's go back in one more time and defeat the Jabberwock. And so this was my second try against the Jabberwock. Let's see how this one went. Immediate regen. I opted for that instead of the fire this time. But that seismic wave is a rough move. Like again, if you're being too aggressive, that's like the moral of the story for the Tifa fights. If you play too aggressively, where you think like using Tifa is basically just spam square as much as you can, and well, I think for the most part, for most regular difficulty stuff, it's definitely fine to do. That's generally how I play. I mean, I don't think too much, I just spam square until I get an ATB and then I do something. But for this one, you definitely have to be a little more observant and careful about when to spam your square and when to play it a little differently. So I've got that Venom on there. This time there's no threat of petrification, but if I get hit by that seismic wave move, I still take a lot of damage, so I have to keep my HP high here to avoid any wipeouts. So now we can start putting the pressure on with fire. And we don't have MP issues, getting some nice blocks in as well. Only 2,000 damage with the firer, like, it's okay, but it's not great. Gorgon Shield I don't have to worry about as well. Again, if you have Petrification Protection, you'll do a lot better, and it helps you to not have to really do much with the Gorgon Shield. There you go. So these blocks are also helping me a little bit with the ATB. I think sometimes it helps me to boost that ATB. But any chance I get with a firer, we go for it. I don't have MP problems. And we're almost at a stagger. Yeah, so I got caught that time. That's how unforgiving it can be. 3,500 damage is a lot. And so really need to make sure that you don't get caught out with those. And the main reason you're going to get caught out is because you're too busy attacking and you haven't given yourself enough time to sprint out from there. Or block it, obviously. You can probably parry that too. Let me see. Yeah, I think if you time it right, you just parry it. But again, for me, I prefer to stay on the move instead of relying on my reflexes. It's funny, it just depends on the game, man. Like, I've played stuff like, obviously, Sekiro recently, and I completed Sekiro. I think if you're completing Sekiro and defeating, like, Ishin and stuff, clearly you've developed some level of reflexes and instinct and that kind of thing, but it wasn't something that I wanted to try and really carry through as much to Rebirth. I might need to rely on it more moving forward at the highest level, but I generally just never really developed that strength, per se. But that's why I'm enjoying sharing this stuff with you guys, because I'm hoping I'm showing you guys a bit more of a playstyle I think that's a bit more common to the average player. I don't think these challenges are designed to be beaten by average players so much, but I'm showing you guys that it's still doable. Like, you don't have to become like super godlike and do it like, you know, I don't know, without taking damage, you perfect parry everything and all that kind of stuff. It's not that level of challenge, thankfully. You'll see later that there is one fight at least, or one or two fights, where that's kind of a bit more necessary. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, I think the most, like, challenging fight of the bunch has actually been against Kid Chi. That's the one where, like, your Final Fantasy knowledge doesn't really count for anything. It's a pure, like, it's a fast twitch fight. It's just making sure you basically dodge every single time. And you maximize your punish windows. Ideally, you do that for every fight, but for Kid Chi, it's almost like there's no other way. He's a real piece of work. But you're seeing here, no problems, especially once I don't have to worry about petrification anymore. Relatively easy, and with that, we will soon complete our third solo legendary character challenge. And so things were going well. I mean, considering I got stuck pretty badly on the final brutal, I think this was a nice relief, and it stopped like my overall, like it stopped me hating the game basically. So that's still also my general advice to you. Like, if you're doing it, let's say you want to do every single brutal first, and you don't touch the legendaries until you finish the brutals, that might not be the best way. Like, if you have brutals that you're struggling with, I generally think most people should be able to defeat the solo challenges and the legendary bout to be a hero. Those will be easier than the hardest brutal, and maybe also easier than some of the other brutal fights as well. So don't let yourself get too bogged down. Try the legendary bouts. The game makes it seem like they're more difficult than the brutals, but I would say most of them are not. So it's definitely a way to continue to enjoy the game. You will approach them in a different way to how you played the brutals. You'll get those extra manuscripts as a result, and hopefully you'll get a little bit better at the game. And so that's what I've been doing so far, and what I will continue to do until I unlock the 2 final legendary bouts at the bottom. So I'm going to complete all 7 of the individuals, then go back for the final brutal, and then hopefully complete the run with the final 2 legendary bouts. That's the general goal for what remains of the post-game.